topics in a way they can stand alone, and we can spend hours treating either of the two. All right, so I looked at a way in which I can marry the two together so that we would benefit from this discussion this evening. So I'll be talking about marriage, and at the same time, at the tail end, I will just touch on wealth a little bit. Is that okay? So this is the anchor scripture. That's Proverbs chapter 24, verse 3 to 4. It says, through wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. By knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. This is very important. So I'm going to be using these scriptures to actually take up the topic. Now, the house that is being referred to here has to do with the home. So the home is built, through wisdom, and by understanding it is established. Some other verses or version put it like, by understanding the foundation is set, and by knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. You will note that I didn't actually mention that maybe love, sex, emotions, and all that. I didn't mention that all through. 3 keys to a successful marriage. You will look at this verse. The love and all those stuffs were not mentioned in a way. We're going to look at that more closely, but 3 things were mentioned here, and they are the 3 keys to a successful marriage. And the first is knowledge, the second is understanding, while the third is wisdom. These 3 are very important. All right, so I didn't mention love, all right, because it is not useful without understanding the concept of knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. All right, so it's like having a car but not knowing how to drive it. If you know about love, or you have love but you don't understand how to actually use it in the right way. Okay, so looking at the 3 concepts, the 3 keys to a successful marriage now more closely. All right, are you with me? I want to be sure you are with me. Please, are you with me? All right, that means I can move on. Now, knowledge. Of course, knowledge has to do with what you know, and it comes by reading, studying, and of course, learning. That's the first way in which you can know. That's how you can add to your knowledge. Of course, there is the second way that we call by revelation, and that is through the gift of knowledge. If you remember the gift of knowledge that Paul mentioned in the book of Corinthians, there was one of the gifts that he mentioned. That's the gift of knowledge. The gift of knowledge has to do with knowing a thing without reading about it or without studying about it. So if I tell you what you ate this morning without you telling me, it's a gift of knowledge. So I got to know without learning about it in the first place. But I'm going to center on the first way of knowing, and that is via studying, learning, or reading. So this is actually important to a successful marriage. Before you can be successful in marriage, there are some things that you must know. And you cannot know it on the bed. You cannot know it while sleeping. You will get to know them if you apply yourself in terms of studying and learning. So if you want to have a successful marriage, just as the anchor scripture says that through wisdom a house is built, by understanding it is established, and by knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. So if you don't know, the rooms will not be filled with precious and pleasant riches, and that is one of the reasons why we are gathered today, so that we get to know some stuff, and of course we understand. So the first key is knowledge, and the second is understanding. Now, you cannot understand if you don't know. So when we talk of knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, they are in steps. You cannot go to understanding without first of all knowing. It's just like if you want to go to primary 3, for instance, you don't want to go through primary 1, 2 before 3. You have to go through 1, then 2, and of course then you go to 3. So the first is knowledge. Now that you know, do you understand what you know? So it is possible for one to know and not understand. For instance, many know about law, but they don't even understand it. And if they don't understand it, they wouldn't be successful in marriage, because they only know about it. They don't understand that concept. For instance, if you tell your husband or wife that I love you, what do you mean by that statement? I love you. All right. Do you mean eros? Do you mean phileo? Do you mean storge or agape? That is to tell you the different types of love that are available. So if you know about love, you need to understand love. You need to understand, is it in terms of erotic love, which is eros, or right, that's the emotional love, now the sexual love. Okay, then phileo, that is the friendship love, storge, brotherly love, and of course agape, which is referred to as the unconditional love. So you may know your wife and not understand her. This is very important to a successful marriage. You need to know your wife and of course your husband, and you need to understand them. So I'm going to talk about some of those concepts this evening. All right. For instance, females do not hear words, they feel it. All right, they don't hear words. So if you tell your wife a particular statement, they don't hear it in a way, they take it a step further, they actually feel it. And it's the opposite for males. They do not feel words, they analyze them. So if you don't understand these two concepts, for instance, you don't understand that for the female counterpart, they feel words. So words are important to them. They feel it. When you tell your wife that you are beautiful, she doesn't just hear the word or the sentence, you are beautiful. She feels that word. And when you tell a man, I mean, you are handsome, he will just analyze the words. He doesn't feel it like that of the female counterpart. All right. Please, are we together? Are we together? All right. Please, are you getting value for your time? Are you following? All right. I've mentioned 3 keys to a successful marriage. What's the first? What's the first? Knowledge. The second? Understanding. How about the third? Wisdom. All right. So that means we are following. So the females, they don't just hear the words, they feel it. So if you don't know that they actually feel the words, you wouldn't act as appropriate. So I'm here to actually set your feet, on the right understanding, like you have a foundation in which you can stand upon. And I hope you will get pregnant with the right idea and nurture the words as I speak. The reason why I said I hope you get pregnant with this idea is because ideas are conceived just like a woman conceives a baby. That's the way ideas are conceived, and that is why we call ideas concept. In fact, the word conception is from the word conceive or concept. Can you say that? So when you conceive an idea, it's a conception. And that is why when you don't understand something or you misunderstood someone, it's called misconception. I hope you are following. So I believe that this evening I will take my time to break these things down so that you have the right information and you will conceive the right idea. And of course, the third key to a successful marriage is wisdom. Wisdom is the application of understanding. So now you know, you understand, and the third thing is you are applying what you understood. And this is what makes the difference. You might know and understand, but not apply it. That means you are not wise. So you need to know, you need to understand. And the third is to apply what you understood. And that is wisdom. A good example is that of if you do not apply what you have known and understood, you are as good as the one who does not know. That's it. If you know and understand and you don't apply, you are as good as not knowing. So it's until you act, and that is why we say result come with wisdom. You would have heard that the Bible says that Jesus is the wisdom of God. The Bible didn't say that Jesus is the knowledge or understanding of God. He is the wisdom of God. And the reason for that is because Jesus is the application of understanding. All right, so God was applying what he knows, and that application, all right, is the wisdom. So wisdom is the application of understanding. So Jesus is the wisdom of God, because now we can see God apply love. We can see him apply, what he understands. Okay, so you need to strive to get wisdom and not just knowledge and understanding. And a good example to demonstrate knowledge, understanding, and wisdom is that of Joseph and the magicians in Egypt. When Pharaoh had the dream, every one of them, they know that the king had a dream. And that means that everyone, they were on the same level as touching knowledge. They all know about a dream. But the next thing is understanding. The king did not understand the dream. The magicians, they do not understand the dream likewise, until Joseph came up, and Joseph gave them an understanding or interpretation of the dream. And that is what makes the difference. Now, Joseph did not stop at just giving them the interpretation. He went a step further by giving them a word of wisdom. Like, okay, we have this problem that is going to come in the in the nearest future. These are what we are supposed to do. And of course, you know the story. So Joseph demonstrated knowledge, he demonstrated understanding, and of course, he demonstrated wisdom. Now imagine that Joseph did not give them that wisdom. That means the famine will come and it will destroy the whole country. But because he actually gave them what they were supposed to do, that's what makes the whole difference. So what makes the whole difference and bring the result is the application of these things that we are going to share this evening. So now the first concept I'm going to share with you is understanding the male and the female man. This is important. Someone sometimes ago asked me if God was male or female. Is God male or female? And my response is that God is neither male nor female, but spirit. We know that in John 4:24, Bible says that God is spirit, and those that worship him, they worship him in spirit and in truth. God is neither male nor female. God is spirit. And then you begin to talk about humans. How come we have the male and female? So I want to make you understand. I want to give you an understanding of that, so that you understand the concept of marriage. In the creation story, when God was creating the different stuffs in Genesis chapter 1 verse 11, when he wanted to create the fruit trees, he actually spoke to the heart. He told the heart, that's the land, the ground. It says, bring forth fruit trees. And Bible says that the plants came forth, the grasses, the fruit trees, they came forth. So when God actually wanted to create the tree, trees, he spoke to the earth, and the earth brought forth the trees. That means that the source of the trees that we see around is the soil or the earth. That is why the fruit trees cannot grow in the atmosphere. They cannot grow in the sky because they didn't come from the sky. If you take something away from its source, that thing is going to die. That is why for grasses, for trees, they have to be on the earth because that's where they came from. That's their source. 20, the same method God said to the seas. He turned to the seas and said, bring forth creatures, and the fishes came forth, and the other animals, the other sea creatures, they came forth. That is why for the sea creatures likewise, because they came from the sea or from the water, they cannot be separated from that source. If they get separated from that source, they are going to die. And of course, in verse 24, the animals too, God spoke to the earth that the earth should bring forth animals, and they come forth. All right. But when it was the turn of man, God did not speak to anything else but to himself. And this is very important. I used to call the discussion here, I used to call it an executive meeting. There was an executive meeting between the Godhead, and they were like, in the meeting, everyone was seated and they were speaking to themselves. In the agenda, they had an agenda, and the agenda was like, what products do we want to create? And they were asking themselves, what should we create? And they answered, okay, let us create man in our own image. So they designed in the meeting, in the executive meeting, I call it a CEO meeting, that they had the kind of products that they want to produce. They decided what they want the product to do. That's the function of the product. How do we equip this product to carry out this assignment? How do we implement our plans? So those are the components of the meeting that they had. And that is what we see in verse 25, 26 downward of the first chapter of the Bible, when God said, let us. He was calling forth for a meeting, and that this is very important. In fact, this particular verse, anyone that understands this, I can take this single verse and teach on it for hours, because the whole essence of man is embedded in that particular verse. In fact, the subject of marriage too is embedded in that. If you don't understand this, you wouldn't know how to relate with one another as husband and wife. So the two of them, they were actually this was it. They let us create man in our own image, and of course this is the verse here. All right, I think I've quoted that. So when they were done with the meeting, God got to work after the meeting. If it didn't work after the meeting, there wouldn't be the product. So there was the planning session, and now there was the implementation process. And you know what? When he implemented, as seen in chapter 2 verse 7, and the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. There's something I want you to take note of here. Don't forget that I started out by saying that when God wanted to create the trees, he spoke to the earth. When he wanted to create the sea creatures, he spoke to the sea. And now when he wanted to create man, he spoke to himself. That means that he's telling himself to bring forth humans, just as the way the other stuffs he has spoken to brought forth those creatures. Now, I have mentioned that God is not physical, God is spirit. So the man that is going to come forth from God is going to be a spirit. Now, he needed that man to have a contact with the physical realm. That's the heart, because the heart is not spiritual, the heart is physical. All right, that is, in fact, all this happened in the executive meeting that he had. So he went ahead. That is why chapter 2 explained further that he went ahead to form man from the dust of the ground. And the word that was translated formed here is from the Hebrew word asa, and that means to form. form. It's different from bara, which means to create. You know, that word bara was used in the chapter 1, which means to create. To create means that you are making something from nothing. You don't have a raw material to make a particular thing. That is the meaning of bara. That's the creation. So God actually created the spirit man. That means he created that spirit man from himself. In fact, this is the way I used to see it, that he took a part of himself. It's like cutting a part of yourself. You know, this a good illustration. If I take a cup and I go to the sea and I take a cup of seawater now out of the sea, that is taking a part of the sea. Now the water in the cup and the sea, they are the same. It's just that I have a small portion of that, you know, in that cup. So God actually took a part of himself out, you know. Now he now needed to give him a container, just as I said, a cup. Now that container is what he actually went ahead to form. That's the Hebrew word asa, to form. So he actually designed that container. And of course we know that when he was done designing the container, Bible says that it was lifeless, it was as good as dead, it was not with life, there was nothing life in it. So it was lying down flat, you know, until the spirit man that God has created now was put into him. And that is what this place is saying, that he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. And this is what defines the male and the female. Now either you are male or female, you are a spirit man, you are a man, either male or female. What makes the difference is your body. So God actually formed the male body first, all right, as we can see here. Okay, hello, are you with me? I want to be sure you are following. Are you following? All right. Am I making sense? All right. I guess you have question at the end. So all right. So I take it a step further. Now, when he created the body, we now have the male body, as we could see. Now, later on, we saw that he said that it's not good for that man, that's the male man, okay, male man, to be alone. And he went ahead to take a part of the male man to form the female man. So when we say that the woman now, some people even break that word woman into two, like it comes from the word womb and man. If you join the word together, that's womb and man, you get woman. So it's like saying a man with a womb. You get the gist. So in a way, the male and the female man, I need to say again that when this verse actually says, the Hebrew word that was used here means to build. You know, I have mentioned three words now. I mentioned create, I've mentioned formed, and now built. So God actually built the female body from the male body. All right, and because he built it, it took his time to actually build it. That is why the females are in a way very refined and more beautiful to behold than the males. You understand? So the females are more beautiful because God took his time to actually do a work that is much refined as touching them. All right, so either male or female, you are a spirit, you are living in a body that is male or female. All right, and this is where I need you to pay attention. All right, so the male body or the male man has a body that is totally different from that of the female man. All right, the two of them are men or man. All right, now they are both spirit, but what makes the difference is that one spirit has a male body while the second spirit has a female body, and that is why they are different, and that is why why they behave differently. So you must understand those 2 points. So you as a man, a male man, and your wife, female man, the two of you, you have the same stand before God as spirit. You can worship God in spirit and in truth. I mean, you cannot, because a woman is a woman, and not say that the woman should enter the Holy of Holies, in quotes, if you get what I'm saying. Because the two of them are actually spirit. They have the same stand, before God. Now, what makes that difference is the body. Now, the male man has a male body, while the female man has a female body. And because of that, they behave differently. Because in fact, very differently. And you must understand this. If you understand that, that will help you to actually interact properly as husband and as a wife. Now, because of their bodies, they define things differently. All right. And if you do not understand how your wife or your spouse defines things, then you are in for trouble. I mean, big trouble. I'm going to give you some examples so that you see. Now, how do each of them define love? For instance, the females, they define love as affection and care. That's the way they define it, because of their female body, because of they are made up that way. All right. While the males define love as respect, they don't even see it as affection or whatsoever. They see it more as respect. And that is why, if you look at the different portions of the scriptures where the husband is being admonished and the wife is being admonished, different words were used for them. In a case, they will say, this, love your wife, the wife, in fact, it wasn't even said unto the wife to love the husband, if you check properly, because in a way, the man defines love as respect, while the female defines love as affection and care. So if you don't understand that your wife, for instance, sees love as affection and care, and you act in that light, then there will be trouble in the home. And if the wife likewise do not understand that her husband defines love as respect, and that means there will be trouble if she is not able to do that, because the two of them actually defines that word love. They define it differently. They have two different concepts for the same word. Why? Because one has a male body and the second has a female body. Now, let me give you another one. In terms of words, this is another example. I think I've mentioned this before, that the woman, because of the way her body is made up of, she doesn't just hear words, she feels them. So as a husband, for instance, if you don't understand that your wife, she feels words, you wouldn't speak those words to her before she leaves for work, probably in the morning, or when you wake up, or when you see her anytime when your wife is at home, you should be able to speak words, soothing words to her, because what? She doesn't just hear those words, she actually feels those words. And for the man, I mean, if you tell a man you are beautiful, you are handsome, it doesn't actually matter to the man, because in a way, they analyze the words. In fact, they will begin to analyze, why is this person telling me that I'm handsome? Or probably, okay, if he says I'm handsome, then I am. In fact, if you tell a man that he's not handsome, he doesn't even bloody care. He will just analyze it. He said, I'm not handsome. Is it true that I'm not handsome? That is analysis. But if you tell a woman, a female, that's beautiful, everyone knows that she's beautiful, and you tell her you are not beautiful, I mean, she would accept it that she's not. And that is what we are talking about, because the male body is different from the male body, the way the two are wired. Another example is in terms of idea. The males bring raw ideas, females are better refiners of ideas. All right. Now the males appear strong physically, but in a way they need acceptance. While the females appear weak physically, but they are great as influencers. And that is why I used to say that the females are more powerful. If you see a man outside muscular, he's in a position, blah blah, but there's someone at home that is controlling that man that is powerful. That's the wife. The wife only needs to speak one or two words and it gets the man to do what you are saying outside, because they are great influencers. Of course, there are several more examples. Let me just mention some few because I'm looking at the time already. I hope I will be able to get to the end of the discussion looking at the time. Another example is males are givers, and females are receivers and multipliers. Look at the way the male body is formed. In terms of the sexual organ, you will know that the male body, they are givers. They give the sperm and all that, while the female bodies are created to receive. They are multipliers. And this is a good example. If a man has $1, for instance, and a woman has $1 million, all right, now there is a deep desire in the man to even give that $1. All right. While if a woman has $1 million, despite the fact that she has $1 million, she will still want to take the $1. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? That is it, because that is the way they are made. And if you don't understand that as a wife or as a husband, then there is problem. You will not be like, but I have $1, you have $1 million. Why are you still asking me to give you my $1? But if you understand that, okay, she is a receiver, but don't forget that she is not just a receiver, she's a multiplier. That means that if you give her that $1, she's going to multiply it for you. Do you get that too? Do you get that too? Do you get that? Is it making sense? So you save yourself the trouble of asking, but there you have $1 million. Why are you asking me for my $1? You understand that? Come on, she's a receiver. You give it to her, and that $1 you give to her, she's going to multiply it for you. So in a way, it's a win-win. You have peace at home, and of course, at the same time, everything is being multiplied. A good example is when you give a woman just a sperm, she gives you back a baby because she multiplies. Give her a smile, and of course she gives you peace at home. And if you give her discomfort, she's going to give you hell at home. Correct hell at home. And this is very important. The males are made to be fathers, and the Greek word Abba, that's ABBA, it's the Greek word for fathers, all right, and it means source, sustainer. And that is why the male man is a source, a sustainer, like the source of a thing. The woman came from him, and of course the children came from him. And that is why it is interesting in Genesis 2:24 that it says that therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. If you have read this verse before, it's possible you don't understand the verse. And of course, the first time I read it too, I didn't understand it. Why should a man leave his father and mother? Why not the woman leave? You understand? That's our culture. We believe that the woman is supposed to leave, and of course, blah blah. But actually, what this place is saying is that now, since the male man now is a sustainer or a father, a source, a sustainer, he is supposed to leave his father and mother so that he would be a source of or a beginning of a new family. So the female man now is handed over to him, so that he will be the father now. All right, so that is what that place is talking about. So I'll just talk about 5 principles to setting the right foundation towards marriage, because you know what, if you don't have the right foundation towards marriage, you may not enjoy the marriage. So I'll just mention 5 principles in terms of setting the right foundation towards marriage. Jesus mentioned a parable that a king wanted to go for war, and before he went for the war, he actually analyzed or planned that if I go with this number of soldiers, what is the probability that I'm going to win this battle? And that's what we're talking about. So you need to plan adequately, set your foundation right, so that when you are in it, you wouldn't regret, going into marriage. And the first principle is what we call Eden. I'll take the principles from that same Genesis. Eden. Now, Eden, it means spot. It's actually from the Hebrew word that means spot or presence or delightful spot. So when we say Eden, like the Garden of Eden, we used to say Garden of Eden, blah blah. It actually means a spot, presence or delightful spot. And of course, this has to do with God's presence. That is why when God created Adam, there's nothing like prayers. There's nothing like worship. I've asked someone this question before, that was man created to worship? The answer is no. Man wasn't created to worship. You were not created to pray. You were not. Go and check the Bible. You were not. It was after the fall of man that sacrifice came. That is a form of worship, came and blah blah. Man wasn't created to worship, because it was well stated in the executive meeting that they had. Let us create man in our own image and in our likeness. They didn't say let us create man so that man is going to worship us. No, it wasn't stated that way. So when God actually created man, there was no room for prayers or worship or whatsoever. It was not necessary. Why do you worship? Why do you pray? Because you are already in his presence, because you are in Eden, because Eden means God's presence. So why seek for God's presence when you are in his presence? It was because man left God's presence because of sin. That is when prayers came to be, and worship came to be, and all the old religious practices that we see all around us. So the first thing is that Adam was placed in Eden. That means that the male man was placed in God's presence. That means before you say a yes to a young man, you must be able to ask him this simple question: where are you? Are you in Eden? That means, are you in God's presence, or you are out of his presence? If your husband to be, doesn't even understand what we mean by God's presence, that means that your foundation is faulty. Or probably, wait a minute, if I ask you, where did you see him or where did you see her? Was it in God's presence or it was outside of his presence? I mean, you to bring him to God's presence in marriage. It doesn't work that way. So the first thing, even before you think about marriage, even as a man or a woman, is, am I in Eden? God didn't bring Eve, he didn't bring the woman to Adam just before he put him in Eden. No, he followed that due process. The first thing was that he placed man in Eden, and we saw that in Genesis chapter 2. He placed him in Eden. Afterwards, he gave him something too. That was in Genesis chapter 2, verse 5 and 15. In fact, verse 5 says that there was no rain because there was no man to walk the ground or to till the ground. All right. So because there was no man to till the ground, another way in which you can understand what we mean by walk the ground is the word manage. I used to say that the word manage came from the word man. All right, if you divide that word manage, you separate it. That word man is there. So you are not a man until you learn how to manage, how to manage resources. And part of management is work, So the Lord took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and to keep it. That means to work it, to walk there. And that is why work is not a curse. Work is a blessing. And we must understand that work is different from job. People may not be happy about the job they are doing, and that is why we need to look at that concept of work even closely. The word work that was used in this Genesis chapter 2 was from the Hebrew word erego, which was translated work, and it means to become. So in a way, work is not so much about what you do as it is much more about who you become, who and what you are known for. Do you get that? Do you get that? Is it making sense? So your work is not about what you are doing. No. Your work is about who you become or what you aspire to become. And this is where vision comes into play. So if you meet a man, you should ask him this question: do you have a vision of who you will become? And are you at work to become what you see? If that man cannot answer that question, that man is not ready for marriage. Because come to think of it, when God brought the female woman or the female man to Adam, Bible actually says that he needs an helpmate. If you are not at work, what are we helping you to do? So the male man actually needs to find something doing that someone else, that's a woman now, can join him to do, like that can help him to do, or what that woman can help him refine. Because we have many men that are actually not responsible, that is why we see the females, doing great and standing on their own. Of course, they are spirit man too, so they are able to stand on their own. But the way it was actually placed is that for this man to actually have a vision, and that will help the female woman, the female man to likewise. You must be able to ask the man, what can you see, before you agree to marry him. A man that is without vision, you should never go with that man. If a man doesn't have anything today and the only thing that man has is vision, I tell you that man has more than $1 billion in his hand, because it's about idea. All right, what will she help you to do if you don't have a vision? That's the second thing. So I've mentioned two things now. I've mentioned Eden and I've mentioned work, and the third now is cultivate. If you look at that verse, it says tend and keep it. That is cultivating. When we talk about cultivating, it means that when you make, for those that know about agriculture, when you want to plant something, you clear the weeds, all right, you make the heap, then you plant, then you take care of what you have planted. You care for it, and that is cultivate. So may I tell you something, that you will never find a woman that you want. You will never. If you are looking for a perfect woman, then you will not get. That means if you are waiting for that, you wouldn't get married. In fact, what will you cultivate if you have the perfect woman? Because you are supposed to tend her, you are supposed to take care, you are supposed to nurture her, you are supposed to make her better. And that is why we have that word cultivate there. So if you have the perfect person, all right, then what do you want to cultivate? And this principle is very important. You need to make her better. So your wife should be more than, better than when you met one another. And of course, that means that you yourself needs to improve on whatsoever that you are doing. And of course, the third is guard. This is important, and that's the reason for the muscular strength. That is why the males are more muscular than the females. They are larger in a way than the females, because they are supposed to guard. Now, the safest place for your wife should be your chest and arms. Yeah, that should be the safest place for your wife. Your wife, you are not supposed to use your physical stamina to maltreat or your wife. If you do that, then you are abusing the gift God has given to you in terms of this strength. You get. Now, the girls should leave your place safe and not pregnant, my dear brother. Because you are muscular and all that, they should be safe with you, because you are supposed to use that strength to protect them, to guide them, to guard them, and not to make them unsafe or or rape them, for instance, or take advantage of them. That would be very wrong. That means that you are abusing the privilege or the gift. And of course, the last thing God gave him there before he brought the woman was the word. He gave him an instruction. He told him, do not eat out of the tree of good and evil. That means your man must be a man of God's word. If these 5 things are there, believe you me, you have set a good foundation for your marriage, and that will help you a whole lot. All right. If you have taken note of that, because of my time, I have to just cut that short there. So if you want to enjoy your marriage, you need to have knowledge, understanding, and of course wisdom. You need to understand the male body that is different from the female body, and the way they operate far different. The way the male defines love is different from the way the female defines love. And we have looked at the words, that the way you speak to a woman, the way she takes it is different from the way the male man actually takes it, and other things that I have mentioned. I'll just mention briefly on wealth, okay, because the topic is marriage and wealth. And of course, wealth in marriage is like one of the many forms of wealth. All right, we have spiritual wealth, that is, it has to do with your spirit. When you are with God, of course, you are wealthy, you are rich towards God. Bible was saying that we should be rich towards God. All right, soulish wealth, that has to do with the seat of your emotion, will, and mind. That has to do with what you know, your expertise, your skills, and all that. That's a form of wealth. And of course, physical wealth has to do with sound health. It has to do with your body. All right, if you don't take care of your body properly, your body will become sick. And when your body becomes sick, then you are poor as touching physical wealth. That means you are sick. All right, if you have the whole money in the world and your body is sick, the money is useless. Have you imagined that some people will be willing to exchange health for the money they have, because money cannot equate physical wealth in terms of health? So we have to take note of that. And the fourth is social wealth. This is where even marriage comes to play. The friends you have, the relationships you have. Somebody was saying that your net worth equals your net worth in terms of who you know. Of course, your family, very important. You should not take your job over your family, because they will be the one that will be with you, later on. You must understand this place of social wealth. That is why it's good to keep relationships, very important. And of course, we have influential wealth. That means your influence, people you have impact upon, people you are able to lead, to influence, and all that. And of course, community wealth has to do with in terms of people you have helped in the community, just like that woman that died in the Bible. When she died, that was Dorcas, Tabitha. She has community wealth. When she died, all the widows came around and were like, Peter, do you know what, that woman, she gave me this, she took care of me, and all that. So she has community wealth. And lastly is the generational wealth. And this generational wealth is very important. That is where the Bible was saying that a good man leaves inheritance for his children. I read a story, or I heard about a story, that a woman asked his son, what is the name of your grandpa? And the son did not know the name of his grandpa. And the woman told the son, he said, when you make sure you make your great
great or your grandchildren know your name by doing what they would remember you for. I mean, that is generational wealth. We should have such a wealth, such an impact, such an estate, that generations will remember us for. So in a way, that's just a summary for wealth. And of course, if we want to look at finance, is another ball game on its own in terms of acquiring money. For instance, how to invest the money, okay, how to save your money and invest it, of course, how to protect it from just being squandered and all that, how to multiply it. So I think I should conclude this way. All right, I'll still conclude with the verse I started with, that for you to build an awesome marriage, you need knowledge, understanding, and of course wisdom. And I think I've shared some insight in this light. Okay, so thank you. You can copy this link if you need to get more of my resources. Just copy that link on the screen, and of course you get access to those resources. All right, those are some of the links that will be helpful. Likewise, just copy them, and these are some of my books. You can always get them. All right, thank you.